Can you hear Rob? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear? Hello, hello, hello. Can anybody hear? Hello? Hi everyone, can you all hear? We've been having a few little technical issues, but I think my able assistant Rob Stewart may have fixed it. Brilliant, all working, Rob says. He's a little genius, isn't he? Brilliant, fantastic, filling up nicely. Hey guys, if you've posted in chat, just say hello. 7-8 minutes and then we'll get cracked off. Rob is my glamorous assistant. So yeah, I'm going to be obviously delivering the rent-to-own webinar, but Rob knows a hell of a lot about rent-to-own. He's sick of me bleating on about it. I've been extremely excited to be bringing this webinar to you today, and as I said, Rob is very, very sick and tired of hearing me talk about it. So he does know a lot about rent-to-own, so he is more than qualified to answer a lot of your questions. So if you have got any questions, guys, just pop them in the chat and I'll be doing my best to answer them. But if I'm in the floor and I'm delivering part of the webinar, then Rob will definitely be able to help. Can everybody see the first slide? It just says rent to own. Is this the most powerful and complete property strategy? Can't see or hear anything. Blank screen. No sound or picture. I think the techie gremlins are at it again. Can people hear or see the screen? Ah, it's a YouTube. Great, so you can hear me. Great, brilliant. Technical gremlins strike again. Give it a couple more minutes, guys, and then we'll get started. See if we can. If you guys can click on watch it on YouTube. So if it comes up on the link saying watch this on YouTube, if you don't mind, you can still chat on the YouTube comments, and Rob will relay those messages back to me. So apologies about the technical issue. It is clearly a glitch in the software, but we'll get cracked on. If that's okay, I'll just see. Wait, one more minute. A few more people that come on the. Come on. It's a little bit annoying, but we won't let that stop us. Excellent. Right, well, I'll get cracked on, guys. So thank you so much for coming on the webinar at such a late hour, 8 o'clock. Excuse me. I'm extremely excited and privileged to be delivering this free training on such what I believe to be an innovative and unique product. I truly believe that this is the only strategy out there that is a true win-win for both sides of the product, i.e. it's the tenant buyer and it's also the landlord. It also targets so many demographics, which we'll talk about later on in the webinar. I do appreciate that Rent to Own, and especially the way that I've developed the product and developed the strategy, it's got everybody's attention. I have been using this strategy for quite a number of years now, and if you've seen my various posts and articles, then you'll understand that I've been using it to some great success. We've got some great results. Not only me personally, as in my portfolio and my forever home, but also some of our clients and some of our landlords that we've helped use rent to own. I do get asked quite a lot about my forever home and how I call it forever home, the house that me and my family live in, and how we came about finding it. And we will talk about that later on. It's not as difficult as what people might have thought in the way that we found it. But everything's easy when you know how, I suppose. So this webinar, barring any technical glitches, is going to be around about an hour, an hour and a quarter at the most, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. But as I said at the beginning, if there's any questions, just put it in the YouTube, and then Rob's going to relay that back to me, or he's going to answer them as best he can, because he does know a hell of a lot about rent to own. As I said, because I've been boring him to death for the past about 6-7 months when I've been talking about doing a webinar on it. So he is very, very well qualified to talk about it. So what I want to do is, if it's okay with you guys, I just want to start off with a little bit about me and my business. And for those of you that don't know me, I have seen quite a few people on here that I do know and on our mastermind and clients of ours. So it's good to hear or see some friendly names and faces, so to speak. But for those that you don't know me, you probably can tell by the accent. I'm a good old northeastern boy from the pit villages of Easington in County Durham. That's not me. Let me get that straight. That is Billy Elliot. And the reason I've put that on is because if anybody has seen the film Billy Elliot, where Billy Elliot was filmed, that's where I'm from. So it's a little pit village called Easington. So when you see him dancing on the little roofs and he has an argument with his dad and he runs out, that is exactly where we are based. And our head office is based in Easington. Basically a working class lad from the collieries. I'm extremely proud of that. I tell anybody and everybody who'll listen, especially when I'm at networking events, doing things like webinars and masterminds and what have you, I'm very proud of where I come from. I've had the same group of friends for 20 years plus. I'm not into this, get rid of your mates and, find rich people to knock about with. I'm very, very grounded, very, very down to earth. So much so that my children are the first generation in my family that haven't been down the mines or worked the pits or worked in heavy engineering. My cousins, my uncles, my father was a miner, went into heavy engineering. My grandfather was a miner, pit foreman as they call it. So that's just to give you a little bit of background about how working class and how grounded I am. So whilst that's not me, that Billy Elliot, the little guy dancing, that is me. That's me when I was a professional cage fighter. I did that for about 5 or 6 years. Absolutely loved it. Very painful, I must admit. My job effectively was getting punched in the face. And I did that, as I said, for about 5 or 6 years. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the reason I've put that up on here is because of the attributes that made me. I was ranked 7th in the UK, and it was the attributes that took me to the top 10 rankings of the UK. That of hard work, determination, and focus. And what I've done is I've taken those attributes and I've easily transferred them into business, which has made, I'd like to say, myself and my companies a relative success. I'm not one for saying how many properties I've got or how much money I've got or anything like that, but we're very comfortable, done reasonably well, reasonably high profile within the industry. I'm not naive enough to think that I'm not, but it's because of the hard graft and the determination and the focus. And every business I have, every business I own or I part own, I put those attributes without failing into the work and into the business. So the businesses I've got Castlederg Sales and Lettings, and we have 6 branches. We've got 50 staff, and we manage just over 2,000 houses. And I've put an offer in on quite a large estate agency and letting agency up in the northeast of England, and that's been accepted. We're at the first stage of due diligence, but that will pretty much double us in size. Fingers crossed, if and when that goes through. So we will be managing, it's more of an estate agency that does lettings, but nearly 3,000 houses with 95 staff and 14 branches. So we're a pretty decent sized business. We have investment arm that we sell about 250 to 300 properties a year, and that's to investors. I've got the property education group with one of my best friends and business partner, Rob Stewart, and he's a digital marketing genius. He is pretty much the reason why Peg has grown the way it has grown, because of his techie issues. He's a little bit of a nerd, but don't tell him that. And we've also got the Property and Leadership Academy, which is our vocational training arm of the Property Education Group. And we deliver a lot of NVQs and Chartered Management Institutes. Now, the reason I've spoke about that is just to give you a little bit of background about me and about my businesses. Just to add a little bit more context to that, and this is more for the sales and the letting side, we have, because of that hard work, determination, focus, we've been very, very fortunate and very, very lucky to be nationally recognised by the Sunday Times Letting Agency of the Year Awards, which are head and shoulders the Oscars of our industry. I can say that because we've won a lot of the other awards from the other organisers, and in my experience, I can pretty much compare and contrast them all, because I've got enough information. And the Letting Agency of the Year Awards of Sunday Times is definitely the Oscars. So on the top left, it's with my MD Adele. Those of you who've met her, we were collecting the best letting agency in the North 2014, which we've won for the last 4 years. So very privileged and pleased to have won that. The bottom right, with Sir Clive Woodward, fingers crossed we stuff the jocks on Saturday, but that's another conversation. That was when we won the best training and development in the UK, and that was last year. The top right, the one where I'm looking a little bit shocked, was when I won in 2015. I was awarded the outstanding contribution to lettings, which was very much a shock, hence why I've got that look of disbelief. I mean, it was pretty much an easy award to win because I was the only one up for it, but I'll take it nonetheless. And the one on the bottom left, that was the big one. That was in 2014, and that's the big cup where we won the best letting agency in the UK. What was especially satisfying about that was that countrywide, with 1,000 branches and God knows how many employees, had just floated 5 months earlier for $750 million, and we beat them into second place. So you can imagine the look on their faces. We had literally half a table. They had about a dozen tables between them. And then the winner was announced, and we had to walk past their tables to collect the award. So it was a very, very satisfying evening, to say the least. But hopefully that will give you a little bit of an idea, as I said, about how we run and operate our businesses. Because of that, I've been extremely fortunate and lucky again to have been asked to appear on various publications and various TV programmes. I've been interviewed by Sky a couple of times. I've been the BBC property guy. I'm using that in inverted commas for BBC Newcastle. We appeared on BBC One Meet the Landlords, and probably the television programme that most people will know us from will be the Channel 4 Britain's Benefit Tenants, where we featured very heavily in it, actually. It was meant to be about 15-20 minutes little episode on us and about 15-20 minutes on two other people, and we effectively we took it over and we were on for about 50-55 minutes. As a side note, we were on the same night as the opening game of the World Cup in Brazil were playing, and we still managed to get 2.1 million viewers, so I was very happy with that. So hopefully that sets the scene about everything we do with Rob, with my other business partners in my business. I do it with the utmost of integrity, with the highest of standards. And that actually is important to know, because that will translate, and that does translate into rent to own. So, just setting the scene there. So on with the webinar. I'm going to show you tonight how rent to own can, if you're a landlord, it can bulletproof your income. So as a landlord myself, I've put a lot of my properties on rent to own as well as our clients, and it has dramatically increased my net profit. Not my rent. I'm not bothered about how much rent I charge. At the end of the day, it's the profit that I'm more interested in, and we'll talk about that. If you're a letting agent, how it can substantially increase your income, and it can beat the tenant admin fee ban. I know there's a lot of letting agents on here tonight, and the admin fee ban, or the upfront fee ban, it is coming. It's not a matter of if, it's when. It's just how we're going to beat that, and how we're going to make more efficiencies in the business, how we're going to improve the business, and how we're going to increase the income so we can still operate. As a side note, I was talking to a letting agency a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that admin fees or upfront fees to tenants account for 35% of his business. he only operates on 15% profit. So you can imagine it's going to go bust overnight. So this is why rent to own can dramatically, it can substantially increase your income. So we are really, really pushing this. We're really pushing this to try and make sure that when this comes out next year, halfway through next year, whenever it is, we're in a really, really good position that it won't affect us. Tenant buyer, how you can find your forever home, but how you can find it now. How you don't have to wait until you're in your 60s, 70s and 80s, you've sold your business, you've sold half your portfolio to pay for the other half, your kids are up, so you're not paying for colleges and universities and first cars and weddings and all sorts. Why should you wait to live in your forever home till you're too old to enjoy it? Why can't you live in it now when your kids are young enough and you can make the memories and you can make that legacy together? And if you're a deal sourcer, how to add another tool to your toolkit as well. There's a lot of people out there who are deal sourcing who will be turning their nose up at certain deals because they don't know how to monetize it. Rent to own can help you monetize those deals so you're not wasting any deals and you're not wasting any potential money. You're not leaving it on the table. And you can start today. Well, we'll see it tomorrow. It's a little bit late to do it tonight, but you get the knowledge tonight, you can start tomorrow. So what are you going to learn on this webinar? How to increase your net profit on your portfolio up to 28%. And that's exactly the amount, the figures that by putting my properties on that could go on rent to own, because I've got quite a large LHA portfolio that isn't suitable for rent to own, but my properties that are on rent to own, and some of our, well, all of our clients collectively, we increased the net profit by 28%. And there's various reasons how and why we did that, which we will go over tonight. How to find and live in your forever home so you don't have to wait until you're in your 60s and 70s. I found my forever home when I was in my mid to late 30s, 36 I think it was. And I'll buy that by the end of this year. So I'll be 40. I know I don't look it, but we will be 40, and I'll have this house and I'll have paid it off in 5, 6, 7 years as part of my strategy. But the point being is, I moved in when I was 36, not when I was 66, and not when the kids were too old and it was the grandkids that could enjoy it. We can enjoy it now. So the 3 children I've got, Stephanie was 9 when we moved in, Jack was 3, and Bella wasn't even born. So two out of the 3 will have great memories and will be brought up in this beautiful big house. How to monetize deals when the vendor landlord owes more than the property is worth. We've all had those types of deals. People who have bought 2006, 7, beginning of 2008, and you've got to walk away and say, I can't help you here, and they're sick of traditional renting. This is when rent to own will really, really help you monetize those deals, so you're not walking away, and you can help the vendor, but you can also make money at the same time, and it's a true win-win for both parties. And by working with letting agents, you can both make more money. So if you are a letting agent, you will earn more money doing rent to own. Absolute guarantee. You do it well, you do it right, you do it correctly, you follow the training that we're going to give you tonight, you will make more money. If you're not a letting agent, don't worry. You can work with letting agents, and the fact is not a lot of letting agents know about rent to own. In fact, very, very few. So when you are working with letting agents, you can educate them. You can come up with a nice partnership, the synergy with working with letting agents, and both of you can make money at it, where before you're walking away from those deals and before the letting agent hadn't even heard of rent to own, didn't even know what it was all about. It's a true win-win for all parties. But as with any strategy, there are going to be issues or potential perceived issues with rent to own, why you can't and shouldn't get started. I'm always going to say that there's always going to be people that say you shouldn't do something or you shouldn't start something, and there's always going to be those negative people. However, I'm a big believer in that people who say that you shouldn't do something, they only say it because they don't know how. If you look hard enough, you will always find a reason not to do something. Right? But the 3 main reasons, the most common reasons that I come across when I talk to people about rent to own, I was delivering a course at the weekend, I talk about on our mastermind, I talk about quite a lot of rent to own because it's a real juicy strategy that I really enjoy, and I really do think that we should be doing it collectively more in the property community. But the 3 reasons that keep coming up time and time again are, number 1, it's too complicated and too hard to understand. Without putting myself down, if I can understand it, then you can as well. It's not that difficult to understand it. You don't have to be a solicitor or a property expert to know how it works. It's quite the paperwork is probably the most complicated thing about it, However, we have made it so simple, and we've simplified the process so much that you can do this no problem. It is not a difficult strategy, or it's not a difficult process to roll out. It's expensive to get all the paperwork and contracts. If you started from the beginning, then yes, there will be costs associated with it, and it will be pretty expensive. It cost us a lot of money, and when I go through what we did to get rent to own to the status and where it is today, you'll appreciate the amount of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, and money that we have spent on getting rent to own to its current state. But I promise you, I've got an offer at the end of this webinar that will make it the most cost-effective time to start with rent to own. Nobody else is doing it, so it can't be a good strategy. No, I totally disagree with that. I think it's the opposite. I think it's because nobody is doing it. It makes it a great time to do it, to beat the rush. Just because nobody does something, it doesn't mean that it's a poor strategy. Use it as an opportunity. I've been using this strategy for years, and I've got amazing results, and I've got the proof. This isn't a strategy that I've just thought about in the last 20 minutes and I've put a webinar on to sell this. This is something that I've personally been using for at least 4.5, 5 years. I've lived in our house for coming up 3 years in next month, back in the next month. So I can categorically say that everything I'm speaking about to you guys tonight is tried and tested, and it worked. As with everything in our business, we tweak it, we improve it, we evolve it, we adapt it, and we change it, but we do it for the better. So yes, there have been several iterations of rent to own over the previous 5 or 6 years, 4 or 5 years, but it is a very, very good product now, and we have thought of pretty much everything that could go wrong. We've adapted and we've made it so that there's a so that if anything does potentially go wrong, we have got the solution and the result for that. So is this for you? If you want more hassle-free, more profitable portfolio, then yes, it's for you. If you want to increase your income as a letting agent, yeah, this is for you. If you want Forever Home now, yes. And if you want to monetize deals that you've previously been passing up, then yes, this is for you. If you don't want any of the above, then rent to own is not for you. This is not going to work if you do not want more money, I promise you. What this isn't is it's not a get-rich-quick strategy. There's quite a few people out there that are chasing the shiny penny, and I know pretty much every sales webinar, every training webinar, you do hear people saying, this is not a get-rich strategy. This is not a get-quick-rich strategy. First and foremost, it's a strategy that will take a little bit of time, but it will help both parties, and it will help all parties concerned. You've got to have that feel of community. You've got to want to help both parties, because that is what rent to own is essentially based on. It is not a cash flow strategy. So for those of you out there who know a little bit about rent to own and tenant buyers, and you have the rent and then you've got a little bit of top up, the top up is not your money. Where people get mistaken and they get a little bit, where they think this is a cash flow strategy, they think that that top up is theirs. It's absolutely not yours. It is the tenant buyers, and it should stay in a client account, therefore it is not a cash flow strategy. It is a cash flow strategy in the sense that you are earning more money. You're earning more net profit, but in terms of the top up, that is not your money. That is the tenant buyers. And this is also not a do nothing and find my perfect home. You know, you have to work at this. As Gary Player, the golfer, said, the luckier I get, the harder I work, the luckier I get. You know, I worked to find my forever home, and it wasn't my first one. It was the 4th property that we could have got of the similar standard, similar size, although the one we live in now is the best out of the 4. But we had 3 other properties that we could have put on rent to own. So it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't very, lucky in terms of we just walked into an estate agent, spoke to somebody, and yes, it was the only house out there that we could get. We've had quite a few properties that we could have chosen. We just chosen this one. So this is a strategy that you do have to work at it, but that is every strategy. That's every business. That's every idea. If you want it to work, you need to work. And this isn't a load of sales BS. This is not, I am doing this, and there's quite a few people on here that know me, and they know I'm very sincere, I'm very down to earth. And if I say this can be done, then it can be done. So what is rent to own? It's very simply, we are letting a property to a tenant buyer who has aspirations of owning their own home. What's important about that is the words tenant buyer. So it's not a normal tenant. It's somebody who has aspirations. They want to own their own home. A normal tenant for me is very, very happy renting, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with renting a property, nothing whatsoever. It's a mindset. Now, if somebody wants to buy a property but can't for various reasons, they are a tenant buyer. It's somebody who wants to take that next step up the ladder for home ownership, and those are the types of people, very first and foremost, that we are trying to identify and attract to this product. And there's some tips and tricks of how we can attract the tenant buyers rather than the tenants. They then rent the property at a pre-agreed rent, pre-agreed term, and it's got to be 5 or 10 years. Now, the reason it's got to be 5 or 10 years is there's a lot of tenant buyers who love this, really, really do like this because it's getting their foot on the ladder, but they can't because they've got poor or low credit. Now, what the 5 or 10 year remark does is that is a typical amount of time that somebody needs in order to become financially responsible, but also repair their credit file. So if you've got a high APR loan, Wonga loans or payday loans, that immediately is pretty much a black mark against your credit file. And mortgage companies will look at that less favorably. If you've missed an O2 bill or an Orange bill, your iPad or whatever little bit of finance, again, mortgage companies look less favorably on that. Now, you do need 5 or 10 years to repair those. Yet again, it is on the tenant buyer. If they are not financially responsible and they come to purchase the property at a later date, then they're not going to get a mortgage. But typically, financially responsible, 5 to 10 years, you will get pretty much everything off your credit file. They've also got the option, it's very important, the option to buy the property at the pre-agreed price at some point in the future. So there's a lot of pre-agreed phrases on here. And I think that's very important because what we don't want is the tenant buyer to go to purchase the property and the landlord says, I know we agreed £100,000, but I want 110. I know the rent was £550, but I'm putting it up to £650 this month. Everything, in order to be fair, it's got to be fair to both parties, the tenant buyer and the landlord. It needs to be pre-agreed. This strategy, or the way that I have developed this strategy, it is very, very fair and equitable to both parties. We've had an FCA compliance company look at it, and they were absolutely shocked and blown away at how fair this is to tenant buyers. But for me, I think that for this strategy to be successful and this strategy to work, it needs to appeal to both parties. You know, we've always said that property is a very lonely place as a landlord if you can't get tenants for it. So why would I try and develop a strategy that didn't appeal to the tenant buyer and it was just biased towards the landlord? This strategy appeals to both sides. So how does it work? In a nutshell, tenant buyer rents a property from the landlord. So if you are a landlord, you can put your properties on rent to own. You can ask the current tenant. If you are a letting agent, you can facilitate. So you can speak to a landlord, you can speak to a tenant buyer and put them together. And pretty much the same if you're a deal sourcer. You're going out, you're meeting people, you're sitting in people's homes, you're asking them what you want, you're trying to pull out of them their desires, what their true intentions are with the property, and you can say, have you thought about rent to own? I can try and find you a tenant buyer. Does this work for you? And equally, if you're a tenant buyer, you can go look for properties through agents, direct with vendors, that type of thing. Purchase price and option agreement are pre-agreed. So we will set the purchase price, and we've got a set way of doing that. We don't want the landlord to come out and say, right, I want £200,000 for a £100,000 house. We have a set way of doing it, and we get a RICS valuation so that the landlord can't exaggerate and unfairly increase the purchase price of the property. The option period is agreed, minimum of 5 years, maximum of 10. The vast majority of our landlords go for 5 years. A couple have gone for 6, and 1 or 2 have gone for 7. The tenant buyer pays the rent and also a top-up. So the rent is about 95% of market rate. So if it's a £500 house, for example, the tenant buyer will pay about £475, £450 rent. The reason we do that is because it's so heavily weighted in the favour of the strategy of the landlord. We need to try and help the tenant buyer feel as though they're getting something out of it. So the tenant buyer gets a slightly reduced rent, very, very slightly, but they also have to pay a top-up. Now, this is very, very important. As I previously mentioned, there are some people out there who think that the top-up is theirs. It's not theirs. It stays in a secure client account. So if you're a deal sourcer or a landlord, I suggest you take, well, if you're a deal sourcer, I suggest you team with a letting agent who should have or needs to have a secure client account. Letting agent stays in your secure client account. Landlord, I suggest you either team up with a letting agent or you put it in a solicitor's account, escrow account. And that builds up, and that will amount to 10% of the purchase price, the pre-agreed purchase price. So for example, not very good at maths, but here we go. Purchase price, the property is valued at £100,000. The purchase price is £120,000. You need to save up 10%, £12,000. 60 months, 5 years. So you divide how many months into the £12,000, and it's an additional £200 per month top up that the tenant buyer pays into a secure client account or escrow account, and that will continue to build up, and that will build up to 10% of the purchase price. So the tenant buyer is contractually responsible for the repairs, and notice I said contractually. So they're not under common law responsible for the repairs, but according to the contract, the option agreement and the tenancy agreement, they are responsible for the repairs. So you can see where this 28% figure that I spoke to you about earlier on, where that comes from. Because if you haven't got any repairs to do in the property and the tenant is responsible for them, that takes a lot of the heartache, and it takes a lot of the issues and the problems that we as landlords face when we have tenants. So there's no more a window's got broke or the boiler. And this could happen to a really, I mean, in my house, you know, it's a big 7-bedroom thing, but the boiler went on it. But because I'm the tenant buyer, I had to replace it. You know, one of the windows got broke on it when we had some really bad wind and a branch flew off. I had to replace it. So my landlord, Ken, who happens to live beside me, next door, he never hears from us because I'm contractually obligated and responsible for the repairs. The tenant buyer often improves the property. Now this, when we first came up with this, I thought that nobody would improve the property. And it wasn't until the first couple went through back in 2012, 2013, that we actually started to see people improving the property very, very quickly. So we tallied this up in anticipation for this webinar. 96%, 96% of all our rent-to-own properties have been improved in some way, shape or form. 96%. Now that will vary from a new boiler to brand new carpets to new windows to painting and decorating throughout, new decking, improving the garden. One person who was only in for 3 months, who was a builder, put on a brand new conservatory at the back. And I think it goes back to, it's called rent to own. When you own something, when you own a property, you are much more emotionally connected to it. You feel as though it's yours, and that was the whole desire and the aim of the strategy, to make the tenant buyers feel as though they own the property and they weren't just renting. Very, very keen on making sure that the tenant buyer thinks that it will be their property, because if they're financially responsible and they do everything right, then they will own the property at some point in the future. So it's no stretch to suggest or to think that they can own the property and they should improve it in any way that they see fit. So at the end of the option period, so the end of the 5 years, there are, pardon the pun, 4 options. First one is, and this is the ultimate goal for everybody, because this is the one that it's a true win-win for people. We want people to buy the property. So it values up, everybody's happy, they've saved up to £12,000, and they get a mortgage and they buy the property. That's fantastic. That's a true win-win for everybody. If at any point up to the 5 years, their circumstances change, you know, they're living in a 2-bedroom house and it's not big enough, other financial circumstances, they can walk away at any time, but they lose the top up that they have saved up. So the advantage of this is that they don't get any CCJs against them. You don't chase them unless they've damaged the property or they haven't paid their arrears. You don't chase them, but they walk away. They lose their top up that is saved up. So they are financially vested in the property to maintain it, to look after it, to adhere to the tenancy agreement, to adhere to all the other legal documents. If they don't, they can be evicted and they will lose every penny that they've saved up. So you can understand now it's a massive, massive financial incentive for the tenant buyer to look after the property. Massive incentive for the tenant buyer to carry out and do the repairs. So you're not going to have any voids, because if they do, they lose all the money. You're not going to have any repairs, because if they do, they're going to lose the top up. So you can, and they're not going to go in any arrears, because they're going to, the top up will pay for all the arrears. So you can see they're massively incentivized to really be the best tenant they can possibly be. The tenant's got the option to assign the contract. Effectively, what that means is they can sell this property on at a higher agreed purchase price. So we've agreed 120 with a tenant buyer. They can sell it for 125, and they can pocket the £5,000. So however likely or unlikely that is, there's still the option to do that should they want to do that. And they can also just renegotiate. So you can literally sit down with the landlord and you can have a chat and you can say, right, whatever's happened, I can't afford to buy the property this year. It's coming up to the end of my 5-year. Is there any chance I can extend the contract for another 12 to 24 months? The landlord is well within his rights to accept or decline. But we only work with landlords we feel are decent. They're not after a quick buck. They're not after rip the tenant off. And on one occasion, it's coming up to 4.5, nearly 5 years now. The tenant buyer has turned around to the landlord and said, look, I've only had a permanent contract for the last 2.5, 3 years. I can't get a mortgage. Is there any chance we can extend it for another year? The landlord's come back and said, yes, I want another £25 per month. Hardly worth it, but that's what the landlord wanted. Yes, we'll extend it for another 18 months. And that's brilliant, because it is a win-win. We've renegotiated the contract on behalf of the tenant buyer, on behalf of the landlord, and both parties are extremely happy with the result. So the 4 demographics I'm going to talk about. So these are the 4 people that rent to own can massively help. So the first one we're going to talk about was the landlord, and we call it how to bulletproof your portfolio. So I mentioned about the 28% increase net income. Now this is really interesting because what I did was I put a portion of my portfolio on 13 properties of mine, and as and when some of my better quality, if you want to call it that, the properties that I can put in a professional tenant or a LHA tenant, as they are coming empty, I'm putting professional tenants in or tenant buyers in, because I want to have the vast majority of my portfolio on as tenant buyers and on rent to own. So we analysed my portfolio pre-rent to own, and then the last year on rent to own. We took our clients' portfolios as soon as we took them over, as soon as they went on the rent to own product, how much net profit they made, and then we asked them for the rental accounts. And because we have the files, it's quite easy to do. And we worked out pre-rent to own, and that's where we get the 28% increased net income. So it's quite a dramatic effect. And notice it's not the rent increase, it's the net income, it's the bottom line. There's no point having a house that rents out for £1,000 a month if your outgoings are £1,001 a month. You know, you can have a £600 a month property, but if if all your expenditure is only £200, that's much more profitable. It's ideal if you owe more or close to the value of the properties. So for those landlords, for those letting agents who will manage a lot of properties, from landlords who bought in 2005, 6, 7, 8, who, you know, it's up for £100,000, it's probably only worth 90. The way we forward project the property price, this is ideal. This works on rent to own. So we can use those types of properties who are a little bit underwater. You can use them on rent to own. It works well for those. There's no maintenance, as the tenant buyer is contractually responsible for all the repairs. So yet again, that contributes to the increased net income of 28%. And I'm not an accountant, but it is a great exit strategy for those people who want to take advantage of the capital gains tax allowance. So just to give you a brief outline, I think it's about 11,200-ish, give or take, that you're allowed per person. So if you own them in joint names, you're allowed 11,200. I think your wife's allowed 11,200. One of our landlords has bought 4 properties from us, from the sourcing department, specifically to put on rent to own. He put one on a 5-year, one on a 6-year, one on a 7-year, and he's waited a year, and he's putting another one on a 6-year. So 7-year, sorry. So eventually he'll have, 6-year, that's right. So he will have people buying the properties, and he will be taking advantage of the capital gains tax allowance, which is very, very smart. it's less hassle as well. An interesting statistic is we have 55, not including my portfolio, 55 rent-to-own properties. And we did a little bit of analysis with our rent-to-own manager, Stuart, and we asked him to time in motion, a little bit nerdy, time in motion, his month. So it was back in January, and we asked him, said, right, every single 15-minute slot that you were at work, we want to know what you're spending it on. And he came back with some pretty startling results. So the 55, not including my portfolio, properties on rent to own, he spent as much time on that as he did managing 7 to 8 traditional lets. So that's how little time it takes and the hassle it takes to look after 55 rent-to-own properties. He spent just as much time, if not more time, managing only 7 or 8 traditional lets. And the vast majority of the time on the 55 was sending statements to the landlord. When you actually looked on the maintenance, complaints off the neighbours, repair issues, just general tenants twisting, it was around about 1 to 2 properties. The 55 took as much time as 1 to 2 traditional let properties. So rent to own is a product, it's a strategy that landlords have much less hassle on if they put their properties on it. As we've already talked about, tenant buyers will actually improve the property. You know, when you see my forever home, my property, we've spent money on the garden, we've spent money on the inside, we've sanded the floors, we've decorated 4 or 5 rooms, spent pretty much a small, well, I haven't, the wife has, but she spent pretty much a small fortune on improving the property, because when you are in the property, you feel and you look at it as if it is your own house. So tenant buyers, everybody, absolutely everybody on this webinar is a potential tenant buyer, whether you own your own residential home or not. There's nothing to say, there's nothing to stop you seeing a beautiful home, whatever you want, whether it's a new build, it's an old rectory, it's a grade 2 listed building, whatever it is, looking for this forever home and becoming a tenant buyer. There's nothing. So this is pretty much everybody. I know some people don't like HMOs, some people don't like LHA type properties, there's commercials, there's service accommodation. Not everybody is set out to operate in those areas or those strategies. However, as a tenant buyer, it fits everybody's criteria. It's ideal for people who haven't had enough deposit saved up, and I was perfect. I was the perfect person in this, and this is why I went on a forever home. I class myself as an entrepreneur, class myself as a businessman. So why would I have? I need £220,000 to buy my house. As a businessman, as an entrepreneur, I would not have £220,000 saved up my account. I was buying businesses, I was growing a business, I was starting new branches, I was starting new ventures. So there's no way I had £220,000 saved up. So the forever home or the rent to own strategy was the only way I could possibly ever dream about getting the home or my forever home. It's also ideal for people with poor credit, as we mentioned, because you have 5 to 10 years to become financially free, or not free, financially responsible, and repair your credit file, and there are ways to do that. And also, if you're self-employed, I don't know a single self-employed person on this planet who purposely likes paying tax. So therefore, although it's a double-edged sword, you don't pay tax, you don't have the opportunity to get great mortgages because your income looks very low. At least with this, at least with the rent-to-own strategy, you will have to eventually pay tax, unfortunately, or quite a bit of tax in order to make your income look fantastic and increase it so you can get a mortgage. But at least you know it's only for a 2, 3, 4 year period, whatever it is, based on the advice of your mortgage advisor, so you can have a high income, so therefore you can buy your property. And this is my forever home. So as you can see, it's quite a large property. It's an old rectory, so it's 1845, 7 bedrooms over 3 floors. And you can see on the left-hand side, on the right photo, on the left-hand side of the right photo, you can see a crest at the bottom, and that crest is from the original house that was on the site from 1498. So there's a lot of the old, materials that have been used in our house that were used on the old parsonage house in 14.98, 14.99, I believe. But I saw this property up for sale, up for let as well. We went in and negotiated a deal with the corporate agent, who wasn't very good. Managed to speak to the owner and the vendor, and struck up a deal with them, and we agreed a 5-year option. It ends in May 2019. Agreed a purchase price of 650 grand, and as I said, I need £220,000 in the bank to be able to purchase this property and as the deposit. And there's no way I had that sort of money. Just would never have had that sort of money in just lying around in my bank. But over the last nearly 3 years, managed to save up a hell of a lot. Business is doing pretty well, doing quite well in various ventures. So we're pretty much there, and I'm looking by the end of this year to have that and to purchase that property. And then the mortgage, believe it or not, will be the same, or about, well, at the moment it's about £100 cheaper, or it will be £100 cheaper, cheaper than the rent. So that's really important, that the rent, a lot of people who have the big houses, who have lived in those properties for a long time, the guy doesn't have a mortgage on this property. So he can, so the rent is pretty much negotiable. We spoke quite a while about the rent. He was just more bothered about having somebody living in his property that would take care of it. So deal sources, this will be another tool for your toolkit. So the fact that there's no or low competition is a massive advantage for you, because it is so unique. So there's some people in our area that are doing deal sourcing. There's a lot of people, in fact. And when our guys go out with the deals, because we have quite a large property sourcing department, and we speak to them, they say, oh, so-and-so's been out, so-and-so, they can't help me, they can't help me. It's so easy to try and help them because people aren't aware of rent to own. The competition for this is very, very low. You can team up with agents as well. So we massively suggest that you speak to letting agents, you speak to estate agents, just to sort of, you're a deal source, so you're not a managing agent. You don't want to manage the property once you've managed to get over the line and team up with, manage the facilitator, tenant buyer and the landlord. You know, it's going to take you away from your core strategy, which is deal sourcing. So definitely team up with agents. It's a good way to earn additional income. So it's quite, you can earn quite a lot of money from this. You charge a tenant buyer and you also charge the landlord. So it's a very good way of earning pretty decent income. Letting agents, I do know there's quite a few letting agents on here today, and I think from private messages and emails and phone calls I've had over the last couple of weeks in anticipation of this rent to own webinar, there's quite a few people that are worried about the impending upfront fee ban for tenants. This is the perfect way to increase those profits. So you can earn lumpy income. Now, what I mean by that is we charge the tenant buyer £1,500, and we also charge the landlord £1,500. You can charge what you want. We found that as a sweet spot. We found that in the beginning we were charging the tenant buyer quite a bit more, the landlord quite a bit less, and we just felt as though that there was a lot of people that either couldn't afford it, or we felt as though the landlord was getting the benefit when they should be paying a little bit more than the tenant buyer. So we pretty much just split it down the middle. And we did find, as I said, that was the sweet spot, that we didn't find the landlords going, oh, that's too expensive. And we found the tenant buyers going, oh yeah, because they are going to be getting a product, they're going to get the opportunity to live in a property that they wouldn't normally have the opportunity to live in for the pricely sum of £1,500. So it's quite a low entry fee to live in your own property for a period of 5 to 10 years. Letting agent safeguards the residual income. So I did a little bit of analysis last week, and we were earning probably around about £26,000 to £30,000 per month, per year, just on our rent to own. Literally just on the monthly commissions. That's not including the lumpy income that we have earned. The £3,000 times 55 over the last 4.5 years, plus the £26,000, £27,000, £28,000 on a yearly basis for literally doing no work. Exactly, there's less work. The amount of work you've got to do in this is crazy. Stuart, our rent to own manager, he literally spends all his time working on his traditional portfolio, and he's trying to convert those to rent to own, and the majority of his rent to own time is spent just sending statements. By knowing or by rolling out the rent-to-own strategy, you will become the expert in your area. More business will become of this. So when you're getting out there and you're speaking to vendors and you're speaking to tenant buyers, and it might not be right for them, not everybody is going to want to buy a rent-to-own property. Not everybody has a property that will be suitable for rent-to-own. However, the fact that you have offered this unique strategy and you're the only person offering it, more business will come of this. So for instance, we've been out to properties where rent-to-own wasn't right for them, but they had a friend who had a property that was right for rent-to-own. We've got that on. They just wanted a normal traditional let. We've got that on. A normal traditional sale, we've got that on. And a couple of guys who owed a lot more, we've helped them try and get haircuts, so to speak, from the mortgage companies, and we're allowed to sell them via auction. So there's a decent amount of work, there's a decent chunk of work, monetized work, that comes off the back of this. It will replace the loss of admin fees for tenants. Right, so what contracts or forms do I use? It's pretty simple, actually. There are only 3 forms or contracts that you use. The vast majority of us, so landlords and letting agents, will know about 2 of them, and that's a tenancy agreement and or the management agreement. If you're a deal sourcer, the majority of you will know about option agreements, but put them together and that is the trifecta, the 3 forms and agreements you need for this. The tenant buyer signs the tenancy agreement and the option agreement. The option agreement and the management agreement is signed by the landlord, and then the letting agent signs the AST and the management agreement. Now, all these agreements are not off the shelf. We've had them specially designed by solicitors and barristers and what have you, in order to get them where we believe they are pretty much watertight and they all interconnect. So your tenancy agreement relates to the option agreement, which relates to the management agreement, which relates to the tenancy agreement, and they all reference each other in the respective documents, so it is absolutely watertight. So for instance, the contractual repairs and the property, we spoke about how the tenant buyer is responsible for all the repairs. So in your tenancy agreement, it says the duties of a landlord, if you look at a normal tenancy agreement, and one of them would be carrying out the repairs. So in our document, it's slightly different. We say it refer back to the option agreement, section this, section that. The tenant buyer is contractually obliged to repair, maintain and repair the property in good condition, etc., etc. And we have that in the management agreement as well. So it's all referenced across all 3 documents to pull them all together. Where do you find the landlords? So letting estate agents, make them your new best friend. If you're a letting agent and you're listening to this, you should be rubbing your hands. You know, just go through your stock, speak to your landlords, explain how rent-to-own works. This is ideal for you. If you're not a letting agent and you're a deal sourcer, you're a landlord, or you're a tenant buyer, speak to them. If you want to make this your business, or you're a deal sourcer, speak to letting agents. The fact that nobody, or very, very few letting agents, understands or knows how this works is your advantage. If all the letting agents understood this and were rolling it out, you wouldn't have a look in. But the fact that you're going to be unique in how you present it and your offering, they will take it and they will run with it, especially when you start talking about the income and, you know, all the stuff that you can try and say to them, you know, about the impending tenant admin fee ban. They will, trust me, they will step up and they will listen. I promise you, they will listen, especially when you start talking about money. Valuations, deal sources, letting agents, estate agents, you've been invited to valuations for people who potentially tried to use you in the past and it wasn't right for them. Go through all of that. You know, you'll find it's your gold mine. It literally should be your best way of getting past getting business on, because you've got that connection with them. You've been out of the property, they know you, they understand you. You can phone them and say, listen, I know you've tried to rent your house out through us a couple of months back, it wasn't right. I've got this new product, this new strategy called Rent to Own. Can I come out and can I chat to you for 5 minutes over a cup of tea? Is it possible to pop out? Gumtree, Open Rent, Purple Bricks, Rentify, all the usual online websites for people, for landlords. They're very good. We use them quite a bit. And good old-fashioned letters and leaflets. Big, big fan of these. Direct marketing. Picture paints 1,000 words with the leaflets. So make sure your leaflets and your letters go together, explaining how rent to own works, explaining the benefits of it, you know, the repairs, the increased net profit, all that sort of stuff. You need to hit landlords at the pain points, and the pain points avoids more repairs, damaged property, arrears. You know, hit the pain points. None of that happens with rent to own, or very, very, very rare. And we've got some things in place that should a tenant buy leave, the money that the top up that has saved up will go to repair the property from the landlord first, or pay off any arrears. So the landlord is very, very secure, and their property will be looked after. But the secret to prospecting, and very good high quality prospecting, is consistency. You need to do this every single day. You know, I said about the attributes of a fighter. I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd do my training, full day's graft, full day's work, and then I'd come back and I'd do some training at night time. You cannot expect to get great results, to be a success, but not work hard at it. And prospecting and business is exactly the same. Don't buy this BS about how you can sit on a beach earning XYZ. It's not possible. You need to graft at this. And the secret to prospecting is consistency. You need to graft and graft consistent. So where to find tenant buyers? Believe it or not, these are very, very easy, extremely easy. We put one Rightmove post on and we had 152 inquiries. We got more inquiries for rent to own on that. That was in a month with one of our branches than we did for 10 properties for the entire month for normal rent. It was phenomenal. It was a beautiful property. It was a really, really nice 4-bed new build, but the fact, in a very, very desirable area. But the fact is we had 152 inquiries. Yes, you can filter out probably half of them straight away. Yes, you can filter out the remaining half straight away. But the fact is we had good 30, 35 real good top quality leads that really wanted this property. And that one went, I think it went literally in a week. The money were passed hands, exchanged hands. We earned more money from that than we would a normal sale. And it took 7 or 8 days, where a normal sale takes between 80 and 90 days. So it happened, it was a lot more money, and it was quicker. And Facebook, the power of social media. If you've got a Facebook page for your company and you put this type of thing on, it will go nuts. You will get rid of these properties very quickly, I promise you. And word of mouth. Yet again, you do a couple of these, you do a good job. Tenant buyers are going to talk. They're going to talk in the pub. They're going to talk at the school gates. They're going to talk in the gym, at work. You know, hey, I've seen you move. Yeah, I've moved up to Eashore Village place and seeing where we are. I've got this rent to own property. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, who does that? Castledine. People are going to talk, and because it's such a new, innovative product, word will spread. We have never had an issue with finding tenant buyers, I promise you. So a couple of case studies. So the first one is a 3-bedroom property, 1950s, £75,000 agreed purchase price. The rent was quite low at 475. Said we reduced the rent slightly, so it was probably about 500, 525 rent normally. Top up £125 per month goes in our secure client account, and that was a 5-year term. So the couple, absolutely no arrears, a top up, been in there a couple of years, and they've replaced all the windows at their cost. Absolutely at their cost. The landlord has not put a penny into that property. The tenant buyers have refurbed it, every single part themselves. Case study, that's actually my old house. So this is one that I've put on. And the reason I've put a cheap one, which is the case study one, I've put quite a large one in my new house, the rectory. Then I've put a sort of middle of the road property on here as well. So as you can see, it's 8-year-old. We've agreed £165,000. The rent is 675. I'm very fortunate to have a tracker rate on that. I think my mortgage is about 250 quid. The top was £266. I've agreed 5 years, and they've been in 3 years and 2 months, no arrears. Debt top up, they've decorated every room in the house. And he's got a really good job with the council, but he had low credit from when he was young, free, daft and single. And he ticked himself up, and he's just trying to settle down with a new family, with his family now, and make a good life for him and his kids. So fair play to him and all credit. So I'll give him a chance on the property. and they've never let me down. They've absolutely looked after it. So question, has this time invested been worthwhile to you? I hope it has. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something new. Question is, do you want to take this to the next level? So please ask yourself, do you want more net profit from your portfolio? And how do you do it? How do you find your forever home like I have? How do you find that property that you and your family can live in now without having to wait 20, 30, 40 years, sometimes never being able to have that property that you can share with your family and create those memories? And how do you use rent-to-own to monetize sourcing deals that you would normally walk away from? I think we've all walked away from deals when you said you can't make any money at that. It's worth less than what I'm prepared to pay. And how, if you're a letting agent, can you drastically increase the income of your letting agency and beat the tenant admin fee ban? Well, we are a training company, so you won't be surprised that we have got a product for you, and it is rent-to-own business in a box. So what is included? It literally is a business in a box. So what is included in it? So I have been painstakingly writing this operations manual. Everybody knows I'm big on my systems. I'm the biggest systems geek out there, biggest operational nerd, proud of it as well. So I've been writing this operations manual since Christmas. We have got the actual options agreement that we have had bespokely written for us, the tenancy agreement, the management agreement, all rent-to-own specific, not an off-the-shelf type product, not an off-the-shelf type agreement or contract. The FCA consultancy compliance report. This is massive. This is huge. This is the game changer for the product. So a couple of years ago, when I really started to post this and publish this on the various forums, we got some positive feedback and some people asking about, does it need to be FCA regulated? It looks like this type of mortgage. It looks like that type of mortgage. It might need to be FCA regulated. You could be breaking legislation. So we took a very, very conscious and deliberate decision to pay quite a lot of money, £4,000, to an FCA compliance company, one of the top ones in the UK, to scrutinise, belt and braces, have a look at our strategy. Does it need regulating? And I'm very, very pleased to say that it doesn't need regulating. I've included that entire report. I actually got it updated last August, so we hadn't had it updated for a couple of years. Thankfully, nothing has changed, but you'll see on the report it says August 2016, and that will be updated every single year. So if anything changes, you'll be first to know if you go ahead and purchase this product. It's everything you need to start now. So what's in the operational manual? How to sell it to landlords and tenant buyers. We've got buzzwords, buzz sentences, what to ask them, what to say. If they say this, you say that. Everything. How to sell it to landlords and tenant buyers. How to attract the landlords and tenant buyers. Where do you go and why? What properties are suitable? Because not every property is suitable for this. There's certain types of properties that are better than others. We go through that and where to find them. The 3 sales letters that we use time and time again that works. We send sales letters to agents. Yeah, even though we are an agent, we try and team up with agents. We send them to landlords and we send them to vendors. And we've got 3 very basic letters. Nothing fancy, just a couple of buzzwords, buzz sentences using a little bit of psychology, a little bit of sort of phrases that try and get people thinking. I've got more case studies, so I've included the ones I've put in there, but I've got another couple so you can see how rent-to-own works and how it may work on the various types of properties. And we have got every major question we have been asked in the last 4 years. So we've got a lot of FAQs. So every question you feel as though you need to know now or you want to ask now, we have been asked, I guarantee it, and we have got the answer to everything. What happens if the landlord doesn't go ahead? What happens if I want my money back? What happens if we have got everything, I promise you. So the FCA compliance report, professional opinion, why this product does not need to be FCA regulated. We were prepared to shut the strategy down, to shut the department down in the business if it needed to be regulated, or spend the money on becoming FCA compliant. So you can imagine my relief when it said that your product in its form does not need to be regulated. Other products out there I'm not saying whether rent to own, exchange and delay completion, installment contracts, other products out there in their form do need to be regulated, right? All I'll say is home purchase plan. That is why and how it needs to be regulated. Our product does not, and it gives very, very clear instructions why it doesn't. So if you ever do get pulled up or somebody does ask you the question, this report will detail the reason why it doesn't. Contracts, blank templates, and also completed contracts. So we haven't just said there's the blank templates, there's the blank contracts, you fill them in yourself. We've even filled them in for you using various examples just so you can understand what you fill in, what the tenant buyer fills in, what the solicitor fills in. Made it very, very simple for you. I've also put 6 screen capture, screenshot videos in of me talking about various parts of it. But the reason I've done that is we're very big on our training development, which you can see when at the beginning when there was a photo of myself and my MD collecting that award. We put a lot of emphasis on the training styles of our staff, and we totally appreciate and understand that not everybody wants to read a manual. People might want to just listen to me talking, my northern dulcet tones. Not sure why, but there you go. So I've put 6 videos in, ranging from 20-minute very short one to an hour, talking about the legal documentation in there, so you can just listen and you can understand the information maybe better if you're not a great reader. Everything we use in Castledene, not one thing is left out, I promise you. In fact, I was speaking to Stuart, the rent to own manager, this morning, telling him about what we were offering, and he literally said the only thing you haven't included is the desk and the chair I use at my rent to own, in my rent to own department. We have literally given you absolutely everything, and when I talk about some of the bonuses included here, you'll totally appreciate and understand what he meant by that. So if you want the same systems that I used to find my forever home, the same system I used to add £45,000 worth of income to my agency, and it's still growing, and the same systems I used to increase net profit on my portfolio and our clients' portfolios by 28%, also the same systems we use in the investment company. It's the only product that gives you a full turnkey business-in-the-box solution for rent to own. There is nothing out there on the market that does this. I will put our rent to own strategy in the way we operate it and how ethical it is and equitable and how fair for landlords and tenants against anybody else's. Our product, very pleased and very proud of the way we have designed and rolled out our product. Not only that, we're going to give you a bonus worth £1,500. Literally, this is what I was talking about when Stuart said you've given them everything. We're going to give you our branding guidelines. Now, you don't have to use rent to own. You don't have to use the name. You can call it whatever you want, rent to buy, anything you want. However, over the last 4.5 years, we've found out what branding works, what colours work, terminology, the wording, the leaflets, the business cards, contact slips. We are giving you all of that. We are telling you how we use it, the branding guidelines, the copy of leaflets, up the logos. You can even use our logo. Now, if you can see on the right-hand side where we've got the business cards, we call it rent to own with Castledene. You can call it rent to own with Joe Blogs, rent to own with John Smith, whatever you want to call it. We give you permission to use our rent to own logos and guidance. Even though the IP, we've protected it, we're giving you the go-ahead to use that. You then get another bonus, and that's all our checklists as well. Every checklist we use in the business is there. So the new property checklist, which is when a landlord brings a property on and wants to use it for rent to own, you get that. And the same when you find a tenant buyer and you want to match the tenant buyer up with the property, you get the tenant approval checklist as well. And there's a couple more sides to both of those checklists. So for those of you who are furiously trying to screen print, trying to get them, you're only going to get 45, 50, 60% of all the information you need to have the completed checklist. And there's another bonus as well. We've set up a Facebook support group. Now, this is a lifetime membership to the Facebook support group. So I will be on there pretty much 24/7 to help support and guide you through the rent to own and the strategy and how you implement it in your business. I've managed to get my solicitor on there as well. They're quite a hefty retainer. So if you have any legal questions, he can answer them. Obviously, I will answer them as best I can, but when it gets to some very, very in-depth legal stuff for professional indemnity reasons more than knowledge reasons, I will be handing over to Andrew, so he's going to be on there. And also our rent-to-own valuers will have access to that as well. So if there's any questions that you want to ask 24/7, you ask it on there. And for the benefit of the group, I'll help and I'll answer. I'll also be putting case studies up there as well. So as and when we do a new rent-to-own property, or if there's any issues that we've come up against and any ways how you get around it, I'll be putting all the answers on there. One-off payment, £1,497. But come on, guys, you know that there's a deal. There always is. And guess what? It ends in a 7. Introductory offer of £997. If you've noticed, there is no VAT on there because we're putting it through our vocational training company, which isn't VAT registered. So we want to take down as many barriers as possible for you to go ahead and for you to buy this particular product, because we truly believe that it will absolutely help you in your journey of rent to own and how to implement it. Whether you're a letting agent, a deal sourcer, a tenant buyer trying to find your forever home, or you are a landlord wanting to put your current tenants on rent to own, we do believe that this will help you. Hence why we've tried to take down as many barriers as we possibly can. We want to take the barriers down even further. We want to give you a payment plan for this. So if paying all up front is a little bit difficult for you, we want to give you the options over 3 monthly payments of £397. That is slightly more expensive at £1,197, but yet again, it is taking down the barriers so you can potentially buy this as cheap as possible. So I'm going to put the link up. Oh, sorry, I'm just getting a message. Because we've had some technical issues, I'm going to give you a bit link to do this, to buy this. So if you want to do it, type in this. It's bit.ly/P, G 222. So it's bit.ly/PEG in capitals, PEG 222. So if you click on that link, that will give you payment options. So you can pay for it in one go, or you can pay for it over the 3 monthly payments of £397, which will equate to £1,191. And that will be shipped from Castledine headquarters back end of this week, early part of next week. So in summary, what do you get? You get an operations manual. So we've had to put a price on it. Yes, it is a bit of an arbitrary figure, but I've wrote this and I know what I charge for a day's consultancy or to be out my business. So I've put a minimum. It's a lot more than that, I promise you. It's a lot more than 15,000. However, we've put £15,000 on the manual. The options agreement, the AST and the management agreement have cost us £2,000. That's fact. The FCA consultancy compliance report, again, £4,000. The bonus, the branding guidelines. So Steve, our designer, he's charged us £1,500 over the years to adapt, evolve and change our guidelines to where it is today, where it is now. The forms are £250. The rent-to-own support group, priceless. If you have any issues, any problems, you're stuck on anything, you go on that rent-to-own support group and you ask as many questions as you can till you understand it. There's no such thing as a stupid question. We've put a total value on of £20,000 plus. So remember, guys, it's 3 payments of £397 or a one-off payment of £997. And just to go over that link again, it's bit.ly/capitals PEG 222. That's bit.ly/PEG 222. Well, that's the end of the webinar, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be here for around about 20-15 minutes. But if you click on the comment section, I will answer any questions that you've got. Any questions, guys? Does the property need to be mortgage free on the landlord side? No, it doesn't. Good question. It doesn't at all. I mean, you've got, all you need from a mortgage is consent to let. As a normal buy to let. So there's no issues with mortgage companies. The only problem is you've got to make sure that the purchase price is obviously more than what they owe on the mortgage. And as I previously mentioned when we were talking, this is where you get the RICS valuation to get the baseline to find out what it's worth now. And we've got a set way of how we value it. So how we forward project, future project the purchase price of the property. Keep coming with the questions, folks. Don't feel as though, you know, you can't ask any questions, literally anything out there. No, you don't need to be a salesperson to run such a business. I mean, literally, if you're a landlord, it's having a conversation with your tenant. Do you want to buy this house? If you're a letting agent, you are pretty much in sales. And by the way, Sean, you are a salesperson because you're promoting yourself at all times. I hear what you're saying about you're not an out-and-out Wolf of Wall Street salesperson. But any person in business, any person in property is a salesperson. You're selling yourselves at all times to the tenants to take the property, to the landlords to give you the business if you're a letting agent, if you're a deal sourcer to the vendor. So at all point, you are a salesperson, but no, you definitely don't. It's such a good product. You don't need to be. The product genuinely speaks for itself. We have our sales to the landlords are so easy, so easy, because nobody else is doing it. It is a complete one-off. Hi, John. Have you ever tried to strike the purchase price at market value instead of a pre-agreed price? Strike the purchase price. You mean, PJ, I'm a little bit lost. Have you ever strike purchase price at market value? No, we haven't. We get the purchase price. Sorry, we get the market value as the base. So we get a RICS valuation to say, right, your property, today's market is worth £100,000. We forward project the purchase price. So say it's £120,000 and that's what's agreed. Now, what haven't gone into huge detail is how we have come up with our little formula or method to agree on the purchase price. I went over Nationwide, Halifax, Land Registry, and I looked over the last 20 odd years, how with the peaks and troughs of the property market, how many properties have gone, how much house prices have varied. And in the Northeast, it's around, well, I think it was nationally, but mostly in the Northeast, around about 7.2%. We virtually halved that 4%. So hence why we had 4% on each year. So if it's a 5-year option period, it's 20%. And that's why I use the figures from £100,000 RICS valuation today. The 4% each year over 5 years is 20%, i.e. it's worth £120,000 in 5 years' time. And that's what the tenant buyer and the landlord agrees. The landlord can always decrease the price, 118, 116, 115. He can never overinflate the price. And we've done that to be fair. So from Move to Own Property, have you always put the top up in a client account? This is not what the gurus were teaching unless it was a deposit builder strategy. Yes, we've always put it in a client account. Always have, always will. I'm not sure why you wouldn't, if I'm honest. That's what we're advised of the FCA. That's what we're advised of barristers, council. So it's what we're advised of several well-known organisations. It's just the right thing to do. It's not your money. It's absolutely not your money. Peter Owen, can you remind me of how the future value has arrived in 5 years' time? Yes, Peter. So just to reiterate, because of the previous work we've done on working out the peaks and troughs of house prices, it's 7.2% per year. House prices have increased. We don't want to use that because it feels a little bit heavy because it's got a lot of peaks in that. We reduce that to 4%, so it's fair, it's more realistic, it's more what's likely to happen, and then we add on 4% each year. Can you explain the purpose of the top up, Mr. Point. Yeah. So the top up sits in a secure client account. It's not your money. It's the tenant buyer's money, and that will build up, to 10% of the agreed purchase price, and it will form the physical deposit that the tenant buyer uses to buy the house to get the mortgage. And mortgage companies, we've had a few complete. They have got not a problem at all with seeing the money increasing in a client account for the tenant buyer. They prefer that, because if they've saved up over the preceding 5 years, not only the rent as well as the top up, and they can maintain that, then they're going to be happy with that, and they actually think that they're financially responsible, which they are. From Michael, do we get any ongoing support? Yes, the Facebook support group is going to be there. So I am there pretty much 24/7. If you've heard the fact that I don't sleep a lot, that is absolutely true. So I'll be there, you know, 5:30, 6 in the morning, and whenever you need me. Friday nights, I won't. I'll be having a drink of wine, but other than that, I'll be there. So yes, you get ongoing support. As I said, the support is a Facebook support group. The support is myself, my solicitor, who designed all the forms, and the various people that surround us that run the rent-to-own department will be on that group, so they can support you. It's a bit like a mastermind group. You will get so much support and help and guidance from that group. People asking questions. We'll have case studies. We'll have a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, the support will be top notch. What happens if the landlord cannot sell the property? I'm not sure why they wouldn't. If the landlord, right, contractually, you are contractually obligated to sell the property if you're the landlord. If you don't sell the property, the tenant buyer may sue you under damages and sue for specific performance. However, it's like a contract. It's like everything. If I have a contract with you and you refuse it, I've got to take a commercial decision to go ahead with that. The most important thing to note is that the tenant buyer gets every single penny of their top up back. We do not take a single penny. If the landlord refuses, the £7,000, £8,000, £9,000, £10,000 that have been constantly saved up there is given back to the tenant buyer, so it's very, very safe. Let's have a look. Not really sure how the capital gains tax allowance is utilising this strategy. Well, yeah, if you've got you get capital gains tax of £11,200 per year. You've got 3 properties. You put one on a 5-year, one on a 6-year, and one on a 7-year option. In 5 years, the tenant buyer buys that property. You've got £11,200 capital gains tax allowance to use against the profits of that property. Same in year 6, same in year 7. Hopefully that answers that one. Does the upfront charge to the tenant buyer also go on the client account? No, that's your fee. That's a commitment fee. So that's the fee that you charge the tenant buyer. It's a fee that you also charge. So that's £1,500 that you charge the tenant buyer, and you charge £1,500 to the landlord. So you can earn lumpy sums of £3,000. What happens if the owner goes bankrupt, Paul? It's John for starters, but Paul's my surname. It goes to the estate. Now, we think about this. So we've asked, we deal a lot with banks and we deal a lot with receivers, and we spoke to 6, 7 receivers and we asked them, and we said, right, what happens? And we explained the situation, and they said, right, so what you're asking is, you've agreed to sell a property, the landlord goes bankrupt, and we want to sell the property, but you've already got somebody in the property that wants to buy it. And we're like, yeah. Says, well, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to sell it. We're going to continue to rent it, or we're going to sell it there and then to the tenant buyer, aren't we? Like, yeah. So it's very, very safe. Another thing to note is that the landlord it's very difficult for the landlord to go bust on this particular property, on this particular strategy. I'll tell you why. So when any landlord comes onto the scheme, the product, we want to see that they have got no rental arrears, no mortgage arrears. So we ask for an up-to-date mortgage statement. On an annual basis, we ask for another annual mortgage statement. If they refuse, and it's in the contract, if they refuse, or they are 1 penny in arrears, we can take paying over the payments to the mortgage company on their behalf, and then we pay them the remainder. So it's very fair for the tenant buyer, and we make sure that they can't be evicted, because the whole point of this is for a win-win situation. Where do you advertise? On sales or rental section? Rightmove, rental section. With the 2 examples you showed, can you show what your expenses and income was? Not off the top of my head. Hermione, do we ask for higher rental? No, no. We ask for 95% of the rent. Remember, guys, because of the additional contractual obligations that the tenant buyer is taking on, as in there's going to be no voids because they lose the top up, there's going to be no arrears because they lose the top up, they're contractually responsible for all the repairs. It's not the rent that we're more concerned about, it's the net profit. So the net profit is after everything is taken off, what is left. The net profit is 28% higher on average, in my experience, based on using this strategy. And that's with a slightly reduced rental rent. And we only do that to try and make it a little bit fair for the tenant buyers to attract them. What we don't want to do is make it unfair. So you've got full market rent or higher market rent, as well as a top up. That's going to put a strain on the affordability and the ability to pay. And what we do not want is people not going ahead with this and not purchasing the property. It's not a win-win then. That's when it really does become a cash flow strategy. Great, I think that's about it for questions, unless anybody else has got anything else to ask. Helen, oh, sorry, Helen, I missed that question. Does this offer last until tomorrow? Yes, yes, it does. Excellent. Well, listen, guys, I really hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening and bearing with the techie issues. And thank you to Rob for working fiercely in the background, sorting this all out. We've pretty much only just managed to get running water up here in the northeast, so this Tinterweb was a little bit out of my league. So appreciate that, Rob. So thanks very much. If there's nothing else, I'll sign off, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Thanks again.